Started back in July of 2024 with MEPI, but I worked for a third-party UPS provider starting in 1992. And they were an authorized service provider for Mitsubishi. So I received training starting, I think, about 1996 with Mitsubishi's. So I've been through, 8700s all the way up to present. I've been trained on. My brother actually started working in the UPS critical power industry back in 1983. And he is the one that brought me into the industry. Eric Gowdy, that's a tech at Mitsubishi. He worked with me at the third-party company for 17 years. We were co-workers. And when he left the company a few years later, he called me to see if I was interested in working directly for Mitsubishi, and I turned him down. And then, maybe about 8 months ago, he caught me at the right time where I was interested in working directly for Mitsubishi, because I never worked for a manufacturer before, only third party. And Eric has been, I think, here for 6 years with Mitsubishi, and he's been very happy. So that was, a trusted coworker and friend. Now, it was an easy transition because working on different manufacturers, Mitsubishi was by far the most user and tech friendly that I came across. When I first started, they were using mainframes and they had computer rooms. It was pretty much the larger companies were able to afford to have their own mainframes, and they needed, of course, UPS backup for it. And they also had something else called motor generators, because the mainframes ran on a higher frequency, 400, I think 15 hertz was the frequency. So, it was a lot more real estate that they needed in order to give themselves the backup power and infrastructure they needed, to present day where, we're in data centers and servers, and the footprints have just gotten smaller and smaller, and the technology has made everything more efficient. Equipment specific, the UPSs used to have isolation transfers on the input and the output, and SER technology. And then, now we have IGBTs, transformerless UPSs, efficiencies because of that increased. But, the change really, on another note, on a safety note, has really made it safer for us as technicians to work out in the field. Before, there was really no guidelines because we were really a niche type of service. So we didn't fall into electrical and electronics, so we were kind of out in no man's land. But the safety has really taken top priority, and there's been a lot of changes in that for the better to keep everybody safer. OSHA is always looking to make things safer. I think this year they're coming out with not just the employer providing PPE, but PPE with a proper fit, and that makes things safer for us. Although Mitsubishi is a safety culture, so they're I think ahead of the curve on that. Battery related issues. So we have test equipment, good battery testers for that. So we're able to do predictive trends analysis to see what needs to be replaced and what doesn't within parameters. It's a budgeting issue. People don't want to spend money because they don't get immediate results from it. It's the customer's culture, or maybe ignorance of the fact that if you don't do preventative maintenance, schedule preventative maintenance, you have to pay for that. Otherwise, you're going to pay for emergency calls in order to fix a problem that could have been caught before it became an emergency or a catastrophic failure. But that's definitely driven either by facilities manager or accounting, or both of them together, trying to keep costs down. But it's just deferring costs. You can never get away from paying for keeping your equipment. It's just like a car. You don't change its oil and you don't do any of the planned maintenance, it's going to fail, and it's going to leave you in the highway at the most inconvenient times. I would just recommend is for them to have a scheduled PM program that they prioritize getting it done instead of pushing it off, making sure it's scheduled and performed, and reading the reports so they know what can be done now before it becomes an issue later. That's the best advice I would have to them. And, to see it as an investment in their equipment instead of a cost that comes out of their budget with no payoff. Paying for preventive maintenance is going to cut down on any emergency calls with equipment failure. The most expensive things to do is repair something that's failed. If you were able to change one component because you found it was a problem during your preventive maintenance, that's all you would change. If the component shorts or blows up or fails, then you have collateral damage that has to be repaired. Additional troubleshooting, that gets very expensive. Not to mention the fact that you're not having a planned event. At that point, you're in, catastrophe mode, trying to minimize damage and the potential of interruption to your critical load, which is one of the worst things that can happen. Great. I mean, really lucky that we have a really experienced and well-trained team that is willing to help each other out. So when you go to the site, you're not just getting a technician on site, you're getting everybody else throughout the US that has experience on the equipment, backing them up if there's any questions or any advice. Everybody's a phone call, Teams or text away, and you get response. You don't get ignored. You do have a wealth of knowledge going with you that you can tap at anytime you need. Before any job starts, we do a job hazard analysis, basically looking at what our job entails and what hazards are present when we're doing our job. And based on that, we use the required PPE for the task at hand. And I mean, take that seriously. The PPE is made there. It's in the name. It's personal, protective equipment. It's there to keep you safe. And on top of that, just being vigilant of the hazards around and following the methods of procedures available at the site, or standard operating procedures to make sure that you don't deviate from it. Because if you deviate from something that a lot of people have put time and thought into, the process of doing PMs or replacements safely, then that'll be problematic, a deviation. And that's why what I do to keep myself and everybody safe is let everyone know that everyone can stop work if you're concerned about safety. You pause work, you have a discussion. If it's valid, then you look to mitigate or change. And if you're satisfied with the explanation of why it's done and why it's safe, then you continue on. But I think that's number one. We work around dangerous voltages that have an enormous amount of power. And if something goes wrong, it can go bad if you deviate from safety. I pride myself on doing the best job on every aspect of the PM, even the things that customers probably won't notice or won't see. Following a routine that is always looking at the details to make things better, cleaner, whatever I can do to get to a site and leave the equipment better than how I found it is my goal. Whether anybody notices or not, or sees it or not, that's part of the culture here. We all have the same goal on the service team. I was born in Mexico. I came over to the United States when I was 2 years old, and moved to South San Francisco, which is close to the SFO airport. And I stayed there until I graduated college, and then I moved to Fremont, which is across the bay from San Francisco. And this is where I've been since 1990. I actually liked the show called Untouchables. It was Elliot Ness, the federal agents that were going against Al Capone's mob in Chicago. But I think it came out in 1959, so it was old when I watched it. But it was it was something that I really liked. Not my favorite, so I'd still say yay. It's just still pizza, and I'll eat it if everything else is gone. I'm not gonna not eat pizza. I love subtitles because I tend to miss stuff if I don't see it written. Chickens have wings. The chicken wings have to have bones in them. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm getting. No, hard no. If you need to wear socks, put on shoes. Nobody needs to see people with socks and sandals. No, no. You can't re-gift presents. The whole purpose of giving a present is putting some thought in it. Specifically for the person that's receiving the gift. I mean, you can give them the gift, but don't try to make it a gift that you bought. And not for an event. For a birthday or something. Don't save it for that. Just give it away if you think somebody likes it. There is no timeline on eating good food. If it's good in the morning, it's going to be good in the afternoon, it's going to be good at night. Usually doing chorizo and eggs, and it's delicious. Jiu-jitsu and wrestling. I wrestled in high school, barely, because I didn't know about it, I didn't find it until my junior year. And then my kids took to it, so both of them wrestled in high school, but my daughter wrestled from middle school to college. And they're both coaches right now for high schools. My daughter coaches is assistant coach for the women's wrestling program at a high school in San Jose, and my son is in his fourth year as the head coach of Willows High School up in Northern California, out by Chico. And besides that, I've been training jiu-jitsu since 2010. I love it. It's great because it's a good physical workout, but it's also you need to have strategy and think about what you're going to do next and see what reaction you get. So it's really fun because you constantly are learning. 80s music, 80s rock, 80s pop, anything 80s, well, not anything, but club music. And I grew up, I went to high school and college in the 80s, so I think that's going to be everybody's go-to, because you have, if you had good memories going to school and listening to music, it's gonna stick with you for the rest of your life, I think. I think professionally, what the advice I was given is to make sure that you do the best job that you're capable of doing, because people can talk bad about you if they dislike you, but they'll never be able to disparage your work if you have if you don't take shortcuts or deviate. The work speaks for itself. So make sure that you do your work when nobody's watching you, because if anybody comes in afterwards and opens up the work you've done, if it's bad, they can say it's bad, but if it's not, then that's it, and it's objective. Do it to the best of your ability, and that way nobody can talk bad about your work. And because the UPS industry is such a small industry that if you mess up or you are not good at what you're doing, you cut corners, everybody's going to know. Everybody within the industry is going to know in a short amount of time. It'll follow you.